I'm an organ donor. I don't mind people using my organs for stuff.
Would you donate them to art?
It's
not quite the intended function.
No, if they could find no better use for them. Like, say they were all damaged beyond repair in a car accident, and then somebody wanted to make some really metal art with that, you know, like, here's a real-life car death. Then yeah, sure, why not? I've got no use for them.
Hello, welcome to Trufax Podcast, episode 5.
Yeah, 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool, I was looking around the room for approval there.
Yeah, that's
I
where we
wasn't
are.
sure. We're at number 5.
We're all nodding our head.
With us this week, as per usual, we have Ed Sanders.
Hello.
Ryder Broadbent-Smith.
Hello.
And myself, Daniel Hills. Hello. We have launched on iTunes either this week or episode 6.
Yes.
So you can subscribe on iTunes by searching for Trufax Podcast in either the podcast app or in the iTunes store.
To be fair, if they're listening, haven't they already done that and downloaded?
Unless we force them to listen.
I do that to a lot of my friends and family, actually.
We've hand-delivered the podcast to them on cassette.
Out of interest, can they find it from just typing in Trufax? Or is it specifically Trufax?
Well,
Podcast?
we don't know yet because that's the future.
We haven't tested it.
So if you want if you want to test that, you can actually get in touch with us now as well.
Yeah,
we are a
yeah.
legit operation.
Yeah.
What's our email address, Ryder?
That's trufaxpodcast@gmail.com.
That's right, and I think we're on Twitter too. I say think. I definitely know we're on
We
Twitter.
are indeed, yeah, that's at Trufax Podcast.
Look at that. That is slick. We're on Facebook too. Leave us reviews, likes, tell your friends, tell your parents, tell your children.
Spouses.
Just anyone, really.
Pets.
Yeah.
Just download the podcast.
Strangers at work.
Strangers.
Just tell anybody, really. If you have Twitter followers, tell them.
Yeah.
I like the idea of just strangers at work.
Just
though.
strangers. Yeah.
So that person at work that you've never spoken to before,
It's
you
a
barely know their name. Go and introduce yourself.
Strike up a
by
conversation.
talking about Trufax Podcast.
Could be quite fun for you.
I think it will.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
That's how we met.
Yeah.
Strangers at work.
Yeah. And now look at us.
Yeah. Now
Got
we're
a
in a
legitimate
small
podcast
hot
outfit.
room.
And it's wonderful. I would
It's
never change this.
so
No,
cramped.
neither. It's lovely.
It's intimate.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know? I put a lamp here to try and bring some atmosphere around the
It
place.
is.
I can feel
If
it.
you want to draw a picture of what you think we're doing, email that to us. It'll be great. We'll have a gallery on somewhere.
Maybe even a competition filled with recognition, no real prizes.
It's like a Blue Peter badge. You know, back
Yeah.
in the day, we could give somebody free entry to a museum or something.
Yeah. If you want to email us with your favourite free museum, we'll reward you with a
With a
ticket
trip
to
there,
said
yeah.
museum. Yeah.
And we will say your name on the podcast.
Woo!
Fantastic. So this week we are going to be discussing murder.
A light-hearted subject.
Yeah, which
as we-
after that
so
lovely
lighthearted.
brevity, murder is the topic of conversation. So as is now customary,
It was a joke suggestion when it came about, but actually it's turned into
quite
something.
enthusiastic about it.
it's turned into
Yeah.
something very dark.
No,
I don't know how many murders you've committed in the name of research this week.
Just a couple.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I did too.
I
But that's
don't-
still too many, I think.
I don't think this was a natural progression from sharks. Like, just because we were talking about sharks, it hasn't led to murder.
Okay, let's
specifically,
start
but
with this question: if a shark kills you, is it murder?
it's like dolphins are in like India. I know this isn't sharks, but hear me out. Dolphins in India are like non-human people, and therefore can be subject to breaking laws and things like that. I think when that happened, that was a whole kind of thing. But maybe the dolphin just doesn't know about the laws. Can you break a law if you don't know about it? Do you have a good case there?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I think it's shark murder.
It's like, well, if you get a ticket for speeding and then say, well, no one told me this was the speed limit.
yeah.
Usually you get off because they're too lazy to actually take you to court.
Might be a bit different with murder.
But if you're a dolphin, it's going to be a very difficult court process.
Why would you want to try a dolphin for murder anyway?
If you
Because
murdered
it's
someone.
murdered you.
Yeah.
Well, not you specifically, but it's murdered your...
But what do you have to gain? I mean, like, the sense of justice that people get from trying somebody who has committed a murder, is that really there with the dolphin? You could just shoot a
Think
dolphin.
for the family. Don't shoot dolphins.
If they're more intelligent
that's
than we
murder.
are.
It's not murder, though, because it's like an animal.
So you can't murder animals.
I don't
Is that
think you
what
can... I don't...
Meat is murder.
I mean, if you're one of those
I'm
like,
a meat eater, just for the record.
militant vegans, then yeah, I think that's quite a popular slogan, isn't it? All this like vegetarian.
It's too associated with Morrissey to be a popular slogan for anyone, I think, now.
With Morrissey?
Yeah, I didn't even associate it with Morrissey.
I had no idea.
Oh, you guys.
Did he make a song of that?
Oh, it's the very famous Smiths album.
No, not that famous.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Man.
2/3 of the
You guys
people
are
here.
not militant 80s new romantics. Or vegans, clearly. I don't think he coined the phrase, by the way, but
It's got a good alliteration to it.
Yeah.
I'll give him that.
I didn't even know you could be a vegetarian until I started listening to the Smiths.
Do you have to be a vegetarian to listen to them?
Well, no, they just told me about it.
About vegetarianism?
Yeah, to go back to what I was just saying, they released an album called Meat is Murder,
Yeah.
which is telling you not to eat meat.
But I get that. But
They didn't specifically tell me. You've worried
had
about
you
this
ever
too
been
much.
no, but had you never been introduced to the concept of vegetarianism before?
Yes, I had.
Oh, okay.
I'll go on record now. I know what a vegetarian is. I've known for a very long time.
But did it give him? Did
I
it
listened
give
to
you
the
more
Smiths
credit?
independently of vegetarianism being a fact in my
Feels
life.
like
I'm sorry for ever
it feels
saying
like this
anything.
is a court of law, and we're
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
trying either.
Have I haven't even murdered anyone. I'm not a dolphin. I haven't killed anyone. Just get off my back.
So you're saying that dolphins can be tried for murder?
I don't want to go on record for it. Maybe. I think that there was that was brought up when dolphins were peopleized, humanized. Humanized?
Do they do that with cows as well? Like,
they?
cows are pretty
Oh,
sacred to them in India.
I think that's kind of different though. It's
And
like
monkeys. You can't kill monkeys. And like the monkeys can be absolute bastards. Like, you can be a fruit seller in an Indian market town and have all your fruit on a cart, and these monkeys will come and steal it from you because they're quite intelligent and handy, and there's a lot of them.
They figured out they're not going to get killed when they steal some.
You
fruit.
can't do shit. There's no pest control.
What if the monkey kills you? What happens then? Can a
You're
monkey
dead.
be executed, or is it still too sacred? Do they have the death penalty for animals in India? Yeah, so as is customary at the start of every podcast, we'll ask the what is question. What is murder?
Killing someone premeditatively. But I guess you can premeditation is just having the thought of killing someone and then doing it.
But let's say, for instance, there was someone you didn't like very much.
Uh-huh.
You hadn't really thought about killing them, but then an opportunity arose, and you just took it, and then they're dead. Is that still a murder, or is that just a plain old killing?
Crime of passion.
I think.
And would that be a murder, or would that be more homicidal? Can you have meditated something as an afterthought?
No.
You seize an opportunity.
Premeditated means you've done it before.
But
the
then
act.
if you meditate on it afterwards,
that's post-meditated.
yeah.
No, I think
And
that's
is that still a murder?
I don't
guess
know.
it depends how you justify it to yourself.
Like, let's say you don't feel bad about it afterwards.
Yeah.
The police come, they find you 10 days later, and you're like, yeah, I'm glad I did that.
Like, murder is the act of doing it, whereas the psychological definition afterwards of why you did it is.
But you
different.
did it because you didn't like this person. You didn't necessarily think at the time you'd go as far as killing them. But you have.
That's not premeditated then.
Yeah, but so is a murder reliant on you premeditating it? Is it based on planning? Is it based on some forethought?
No, because, like, let's say people in the army, they plan their killing. They'll go to extreme lengths to plan, like, what they're going to blow up, when, how, and who's going to be there. And yet, society doesn't necessarily view what they do as murder.
Is there a legal definition? I would say that
There's a Google definition.
It's a lawful killing in that regard, almost. Same as like an execution. Someone's been murdered by the state.
Or James Bond.
Like, it's a premeditated death, but it's within the realms of the law.
I think, are we talking about murder itself as, like, whatever murder is defined as, or just the kind of the fact that you've killed someone, or killing, like, what drives people to kill, and what that then kind of means?
But then, like, you squish flies all the time.
It's fly murder.
Is that
Murder on the fly.
And that comes back to my initial question. So let's say you suddenly get an opportunity to kill someone on the fly.
Yeah.
Is that a murder, or is that just an odd fit of rage?
I think it is.
Maybe.
Like, I think it still counts. Like, I personally view murder and killing or whatever on the same sort of spectrum. Like, it's the same. You're still ending someone's life, and whether or not it was done because you had personal reasons or because you saw an opportunity, it's like, I've never killed someone, I'm going to do it now.
So is it down to intent? So there's a clear distinction between a manslaughter and a murder.
So, for example, there was that story in the... This kind of goes to my question for the group. May I?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So it's like, when or is murder ever justified? Like, and I kind of asked this question because recently in the news there was that story of I think it was a 94 or 84-year-old pensioner who killed his wife, who was in a care home, who was suffering from dementia. So he shot her in the head. He was going to shoot himself afterwards, but he was shaking too much and wasn't able to go through the process. But he did it because she was, not... he knew her for so long of his life. She wasn't happy. She was like dealing with this quite severe brain disease, and it's that sort of, assisted suicide and or like euthanasia, like whether or not that should be legal, and is that murder because it was premeditated?
I think the legal definition of that is a murder. I don't think it's necessarily an unlawful killing in that regard. Like I'm all for kind of euthanasia and assisted suicide in certain circumstances where it's more humane than letting someone continue to live. And if I was in that position, I would want someone to do it to me. If either of you want to offer yourselves up for that service, give myself another year.
Yeah. This is such a dodgy topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was talking about... Can I just tell my little story? I was talking about this to two friends in a pub today about the topic of murder, just seeing if, like, doing some research, seeing if they had any thoughts about it. And the two girls sitting next to us on the next table, eating their lunch, got up and left halfway through their lunch.
Oh, wow.
After overhearing the conversation we were having. And
that's great. You don't even have to kill people to get free food.
I guess one of the most taboo things that you can do in our society is to kill another person. Like, and when that's then like, this isn't the same way that if you're talking about farts for a long time.
Some people's job is to murder people.
Who? James Bond.
Vets have to put... Okay, maybe they don't have to put people down, but they have to put dogs down. In a similar euthanasia style.
I thought animals couldn't be murdered, Ed.
Did we define that at the beginning, or was that still left open?
It was still left open.
You said a shark can murder something.
Yeah, I thought you were saying you couldn't. Sorry.
I
would say if an animal can murder a person can murder an animal.
A murder of crows.
I'm glad it's you with the puns this week, not me. But then a soldier, they are, again, a state-sanctioned killer. They're doing it to keep the peace, whatever that means when it comes to war. They're killing within kind of a legal ground, that they are being paid to go out and kill in the name of defence.
It kind of feels messed up when you kind of put it like that, if you know what I mean. Like, I understand that, like, if we didn't kill them, they might kill us and stuff, but it's just like... You just kind of hope that we could actually just talk about this stuff and not get all territorial and not be like quite... Like, it's quite a really ancient way of dealing with conflict, is just like silencing other people's opinions.
It's the most effective way of dealing with conflict, though.
Yeah, but...
There's an implicit agreement if both sides have guns pointed at the other side. Yeah. They're kind of accepting that...
The soldiers, if they're civilian casualties, it's what the Geneva Convention is for. It's the rules of war. If you kill someone who is not an enemy combatant, you've committed a murder. You've done a big bad crime.
But if you kill someone who is an enemy combatant, well, they were in it. Fair. They understood. The rules of engagement, really.
So, as much as I think we all probably wouldn't necessarily agree that it is a justified form of killing, it isn't a murder in the illegal sense.
What about the general who sends his troops into the army knowing they're going to get killed, like they did in the First World War, where they'd send like battalions of men against tanks or guns or
anything? So has he murdered his own troops knowingly?
Well, you do end up seeing that, though. Like 10 years later, an officer might be charged with essentially war crimes because they made a call that put thousands of lives or ended thousands of lives because it gave them the tactical advantage. But if it didn't necessarily work out positively, then they get bastardized, or they get they get
turned villains.
Yeah, turned into a villain, or because they weren't successful. And I think that's all just part of the same system. Like it's sanctioned until they
decide
need a reason.
It's not the right thing to have done.
Yeah.
or society decides it for them because they're the losing side as opposed to the winning sides. I don't know. It's a whole can of worms, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
What was the original question?
So how, is murder ever justified? Or when is murder justified?
I mean, there are patients on the NHS who probably need life-saving drugs that people can't afford. And in that sense, they're essentially committing murder if they're denying them life-saving medicine. And they're justifying it by costs. You know, they're weighing up the benefits of providing life-saving medicine to 10 other people for the cost of the single person they're denying it to.
So, is it in that case justified to say the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few?
That's such a slippery slope, isn't it?
It's like the whole, would you go back in time and kill Hitler to prevent the Holocaust? Because you're essentially killing an innocent man at that point. So that would be a murder. You have the benefit of hindsight.
You could just you could go back and kill the guy who stopped him getting into art school and just make sure that he gets into art school.
But you've still done a murder there.
Still done a murder.
Arguably a worse one, because that was probably a very nice man who wasn't ever going to do a bad thing.
Don't do that.
Do you have to murder Hitler to stop him from becoming Hitler?
No, just put him in a little box underground.
Yeah. He'd probably still die.
You're basically burying him alive.
With any kind of historical thing like that, there's always that, if it wasn't Hitler, there was still going to be this power vacuum where someone could have potentially risen to power. And I guess maybe his own personal agenda was the thing that caused the Holocaust. And
is war just population control? You know, once resources get too constrained, people start fighting over what's left.
Yeah. War
ends up killing half the population. Hey, we've got enough resources now.
John Carter of Mars. I watched that yesterday because we talked about it before. I quite enjoyed it, but there are these... I guess they're kind of like non-players. They're like administrators of the game, is how they kind of seem to describe themselves. Where they're saying that they don't necessarily they don't create the destruction of a planet. They just allow it to happen, or they manage it happening. So on any planet, they always have expanding civilizations that then start to use up the resources, and then they kind of war with each other over the control of these resources, while in the meantime the planet behind them, the neglected planet, just starts to fade away, and then no one is left. And it's that sort of thing where it's kind of within our habit of what we've done to become where we are today, to just kind of expand, use, and then control. And that when there's multiple civilizations that are doing that at the same time, it creates these conflicts. Does that make sense?
I don't know where you're going with this.
Neither do I. I'm just saying that it's gonna there's always gonna be those sorts of conflicts. I don't know.
I think he was just agreeing with you, Ed.
Oh, right.
Just accept it.
Oh, that's good.
You also wanted to rub it in that he'd seen a film that we spoke about before any of the rest of us.
What?
Have any of you watched R.I.P.D. yet?
You watched? No, but you've watched John Carter. You're the one who told me to watch John Carter.
Yeah,
you said it was good.
I didn't rewatch it though.
What?
I put my seal of approval on a lot of things, and then never revisit it. I don't know.
What does your seal mean at that point then?
Nothing.
Right. You're aware of this fact.
Oh yeah.
Never believe his seal.
Yeah.
What seal is that?
Unless it's something I've kind of watched or seen or read within the past week, where I can remember it well.
Well, Ryder, you were talking about this, the nostalgia you associate with YouTube videos that you saw 10 years ago and were hilarious at the time.
Yeah.
You then come back and watch and go, oh.
This is why, I'll. There's a lot of things I probably saw 10, 15 years ago when I was a teenager that I remember fondly and have probably shaped my adult life. But I have no interest in revisiting them just in case the rose-tinted glasses don't work as well as they should.
Yeah.
And I don't want to potentially ruin what I think has made me what I am now. With the exception of Empire Records, which I genuinely love and will watch at least once a year.
Empire Records?
Empire Records.
What's that,
Empire
a Manchester
Records
thing?
No, it's like a teen comedy set in a big chain. It's not in a chain record store at the time. It's a big independent record store.
Yeah.
And it's about to be bought out by a chain. Rex Manning? No one.
No.
Well, this gets my official seal.
Dan is really excited, and Ryder and I have blank looks on our faces.
I love Empire Records.
How old is it? When's it from?
90-something or other.
Sounds like High Fidelity, that film with
Yeah,
Jack Black.
it's a good film. No, it's not
Similar.
Jack Black. It is Jack Black. Sorry, I was going to say it's John Cusack, but then it's
Both
also
of
Jack
them,
Black.
yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah. Sorry.
A friend of mine got
Neither
Jack
of
Black
them.
confused with Jack White the other day.
Easy mistake.
Yeah, both music-related.
Both colour names.
Colour names.
Both called Jack. Which I think is probably where the confusion arose.
It's
like
like
John
similar,
Carpenter
in
and John Carter.
they both got Carter and Carpenter. You have to be a carpenter to make a cart.
I had this conversation with someone who's doing a degree in maths. It's like, when is she a mathematician? Or like,
Are you only a mathematician when you're doing maths?
well, that's the question. Like, she was saying she doesn't see herself as a mathematician, but she sees her lecturers and those doing PhDs as mathematicians. But I kind of was saying, well, maybe her lecturers don't see themselves as mathematicians. They only see the next level.
Like,
as a
what level of
mathematician.
sum do you have to be able to do to say I'm now a mathematician?
Big one.
How big?
At least
Like-
4 numbers involved.
Yeah.
Like different numbers, or like
Well-
2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2?
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a big...
Do you know the
sum.
answer?
Gonna have to get a calculator.
Like, if you use
8.
a calculator, are you a mathematician?
You know...
Or is a mathematician someone who can do really good mental arithmetic, or just hypothetical maths?
No, that's a 7th.
Do you become a mathematician when you don't need to use numbers anymore? Is that
They use a lot of imaginary numbers in
Yeah,
advanced
that's what I mean. So, like, when your brain expands beyond the conventional numbering system,
This was
you're
kind of
then a mathematician.
what I was asking her as well, because she was saying, I was like asking her, is like, when you're doing a degree, do you do the philosophy of maths as well? Because, you know, like Pythagoras and his
They were
cronies,
philosophers.
they were philosophers, but just believed that the universe could be answered by maths. And I think there's some truth in that, because they seem to make a lot of headway in stuff that's still relevant today in the way that we understand stuff.
Do you want an interesting maths fact?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
maths fact.
A true fact. So, I read that pi to the 40th digit, which is nowhere near as many digits as some people know it to, or that you can buy whole books of pi. Pi to the 40th digit is accurate enough to measure the width of the universe, or the circumference of the entire universe, to the width of a human hair.
Huh.
So that's pretty fucking accurate, right? To 40 digits.
So is it like you know how we get like super foods and super materials and stuff? Is pi just like a super number? How do you mean that you can measure it? Like, as in the
What's the rest of the equation? Or are we
Yeah.
just looking at pi and going, oh,
hair in the
So
universe?
pi is the mathematical constant that you use in order to measure the circumference of a circle
Okay, yes,
relative to its radius.
yeah.
So 2 times pi times the radius of a circle is its circumference, is the outside line.
Yeah.
So if you know the distance from one point in the center of the universe to the edge, which I think scientists do based on
Light.
and the amount of time it takes to reach the edge of the observable universe,
Okay, yeah.
they can work out the circumference of it.
and then even though it changes because pi is a constant, we always have that answer,
Cool.
no matter what it is.
Yeah.
I get it now. That's amazing.
Right, so it's incredibly accurate as it is, so there's no point in going to any more than 40 digits of pi, and yet people do hundreds of thousands of decimals.
I guess it's because they're just interested to see how far it can go, because, like, as far as we understand, it's meant to be ongoing, but we also are like, well, there must be an end.
To pi or the universe?
I guess maybe when we find the end of pi, we find...
It's the end of the universe.
Yeah,
is
I mean,
the
for
end
some
of the
people,
pi string,
when they finish their pies, that could be considered the end of the universe.
the end of their own universe.
Yeah.
But no, pi is an infinite number, isn't it? It never reoccurs either. Like, so in theory, any string of numbers will appear at some point in pi. Your own phone number is somewhere in pi.
Ooh.
Your date of birth, the date you'll die, is somewhere in pi. You can unlock the secrets to the entire universe using just pi.
I mean, that
So-
sounds like it could be a superhero, couldn't it?
Is
like
the
Pi
entire-
Man.
Pi Man.
Pie Man.
We used to call our fat maths teacher Pi Man.
And there you go. That's where maybe he was cleverer than you ever gave him credit for. He was Pi Man, and you just thought you were bullying him, thought you were being clever. But no, he knows the universe
He'll get you
inside
one
out.
day.
Making me feel really bad now
Do you
for
remember-
bullying this guy.
Pie Face from the Beano, or from Dennis the Menace.
Yeah, wasn't he he was in a gang, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
well, he was like...
Why was he called Pie Face?
Because he had a circular face that looked like a pie. Yeah.
And his paws were infinite, and they never reoccurred. And you could find your own phone number on his face if you looked hard enough. Did we answer the first question satisfactorily?
Yeah, I think so. I think I guess maybe a murderer might be able to say, well, that murder was justified, but realistically...
Well, I guess we haven't touched on like self-defense or anything here either. Like, there's the famous castle doctrine or whatever it's called that they have in some American states, where if someone is on your property
Oh, yeah.
and they shouldn't be, you can just do whatever you want to them.
Lethal force, yeah.
Yeah. Well, not whatever you want, but yeah, within reason, you can shoot them
You
dead.
can't like arrest them and torture them and
Well,
stuff.
no, the weirdest
As long
thing
as
with
no
that,
one
though-
finds out, you can. As long as the body that's presented at the end looks like it's just been a conventional murder.
Don't think that's a true fact.
From what I know,
I'm not
It's-
going to try it myself, but
if they broke into your house, you shot them in the leg or the kneecap or something like that, they can then sue you because you've caused them injury and haven't killed them. Or
again,
something like
it
that.
all
Like, it's-
depends where you are.
and how good your lawyer is.
Yeah.
And theirs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why you should always just kill burglars.
Yeah, because they're not going to have a lawyer if they're dead.
They might. The ghost lawyer is going to kill them.
R.I.P.D.
R.I.P.D. Yeah.
Crimes of passion are interesting because it's almost like you stop taking responsibility for your actions. You know, the passionate headspace that you inhabit in jealousy or rage is supposed to justify some of the cases of murder that happen. And I always find that quite fascinating. Although saying it back kind of sounds like, you could justify domestic abuse as well because it's passion, which I don't think.
Well, I think quite often these killings done in the heat of the moment aren't always convicted as murder because it is an accident. It's certainly not first-degree murder. It's not one of these premeditated killings. I think the definition of a murder is, or what makes a manslaughter into a murder, is if the object that was being used is a deadly object.
Yeah.
So if you attacked someone with a gun but didn't want to kill them, but they did die, you knew a gun was capable of killing someone.
What
If
about,
you attack someone with a
chopstick?
sword, that's where it becomes hazy. Something that is identifiable as a deadly weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a sword.
Yeah, a sword, a massive knife, a little knife even, a gun, poison.
But anything can be
Anything
looked
like
as
that.
a weapon when your perspective is changed.
But it's
like
not a deadly weapon.
a trumpet.
Yeah, so that if you were in a room and just happened to have a trumpet to hand
Yeah.
and attacked someone with a trumpet,
Yeah.
your intent might be to just severely wound them, but they die.
Yeah.
You've not murdered them, you've committed
I see.
manslaughter.
Yeah. Okay, yeah,
There's
yeah.
people in prison who get a toothbrush and sharpen it into a pick so
Yeah.
they can
Shiv.
stab.
Yeah.
Shiv,
Yeah.
Yeah.
shank, something like that. They intend to create that weapon and to kill somebody with
But
it.
you get in a fight and you've just got an unsharpened toothbrush.
Can it go
but
down that?
the person you've attacked dies, that would be a manslaughter.
Could they make an argument here? Like how David said that. No, the guy who made David, the marble bloke,
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Leonardo DiCaprio, and he was
It
like,
took a while to catch up with
Yeah.
what you were trying to say.
no, but like
So
he was
what
saying
David
that
are you talking
David,
about? David who?
the big
Vinci?
marble David was always inside the marble, and he just
Michelangelo, yeah.
It's one of the turtles
and
did it.
he brought him out of the marble, and it's just like he like God allowed him to do that. Could they just say, well, the shiv was always in the toothbrush, I just let it free?
I think that's probably one of the arguments they do use in court,
Yeah,
to be honest.
And I think that's where a lot of these insanity pleas come from.
I
Yeah.
didn't do it, God did it.
Yeah, God told me to do it.
But it's just voices in their head, really, when you objectively look at it.
Yeah. But
Wait.
then they have planned that then because the voices have told them they've been having a conversation for a while about the best way to do these murders.
even if it's the voices that are responsible and not the human with the... They're still worth locking them up at that point.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Well, the voices can't carry the shiv.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is true.
Yeah. Like a lot of cults, was it? Did Charles Manson do a lot of his killing himself, or did he get his followers to do it?
It was a family, I think. Or maybe they called themselves the Manson family.
Yeah, the Manson family values
Be
is a
terrible
phrase I have in my head and have no idea what it refers to. It's definitely Charles Manson.
I think I remember reading a fact that he would only attack people who left their door unlocked because people who locked their door didn't want to get murdered.
I think that's sound logic. It's like you're asking for it.
Yeah,
isn't it?
oh yeah. That's why you should always lock your door, right?
Tempting fate, you just want to live a little. Because life is short. So you leave your door unlocked, and at any time you could be murdered by Charles Manson.
And he killed Roman Polanski's wife,
Did he?
I think.
Yeah, or someone related to the Manson cult
Yeah.
got his
responsible
wife.
for that.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
something.
So that I guess that's the voices in your head, be they literally in your head. Well, I say literally, be they figuratively in your head and not real, or Charles Manson whispering, "Hey, that guy's door's unlocked. Go and have a pop."
You're still complicit at that point.
Yeah, so I would probably say as guilty as the person who actually did the Manson murders is, Charles Manson is equally as culpable, if
Yeah.
not more so.
Yeah. Because they're both taking responsibility for it at that point.
Yeah.
I think we're fairly unanimously agreed on that.
Yeah.
That there are some forms of justified killing, whether we agree with it or not. Suicide used to be considered murder, didn't it?
Yeah, it was illegal.
Yeah. I don't know if really what... They could drag your name through the mud after you'd killed yourself, I guess, but...
Bring shame upon your family.
Family and stuff. But that seems odd.
Was it illegal based on, like, you know, something like, you know, where it's seen as a sin to kill yourself,
Maybe
so we'd made law based around that?
Yeah, deterrent more than an actual punishable offence.
Yeah, don't kill yourself, otherwise you'll go to jail. Assassinations and stuff like that. Like, do you think... When was the last assassination in terms of, like, in a big media thing that we were exposed to? I guess it happens quite a lot.
Benazir Bhutto, when was that? 2 years ago? 1 year ago?
Is he the Syrian guy?
It's the Egyptian lady.
Egyptian lady?
Yeah.
Ah.
Have I got the name wrong completely there?
I'm not very
not very clued up
current
on it,
events.
so.
There was the Russian spy.
The Russian spy who turned up in a suitcase with, like, some uranium or something like that.
He wasn't in a suitcase, was he? He just got poisoned by an umbrella, yeah.
Oh, did he?
Unless there's been another one
There's,
since.
the Russians made a TV show about that.
What?
That painted him as the bad guy, the defector who was killed to save the security of of a nation. I mean, they changed all the names.
That's kind of intense. Like, that it's just... Like, that's kind of admitting to the fact that he was murdered for that controlled media.
It is, that's true. You could argue that BBC is that.
Yeah, we're probably on a list now somewhere.
Benazir Bhutto was the name. 2007. What have I been doing for all this time that I think that was just a couple of years ago? When were all the riots and the uprising and the coups in Egypt?
That was
fairly recently.
That was fairly recently. That wasn't 2007. Like when they knocked out the internet for a bit.
Pakistan.
Right.
God, I'm so ignorant.
Didn't get that far ahead.
I'm sorry. Of the 4 words written on the screen in front of me, I did not get as far as reading Pakistan, which would have explained a lot. Yeah. I wouldn't have sounded like an idiot talking about Egypt there. Let's leave that in for posterity.
Do you count not Saddam Hussein, the other one, Osama bin Laden's killing by the Obama administration as a murder?
No,
an assassination.
I think it's an assassination.
Not as an assassination. It was a murder, but again within the rules of war.
Well, within our rules of war, not necessarily within his, because he was at home with his family at the time. He didn't get tried. He didn't get pulled before an international human rights court. He just got ambushed and murdered.
Yeah,
that's true. I guess, but then
there was a lot of like frowning about it because it was a pretty shady move to take. Like they just thought, "Yep, we're just gonna go in there and kill him."
But when you mastermind an atrocity as big as he did, you got to kind of expect that sort of burden to be on your head.
Yeah,
he didn't go into that thinking, "Oh, it's okay as long as I just stay at home from now on, I'm safe."
In that regard, then, would you say that he set down the rules of war by saying that he can murder a load of civilians, so he can therefore be murdered?
Yeah, like it comes back to that eye for an eye. So I know, kind of just killing one man isn't the same as bringing down 2 massive buildings and killing thousands.
No, but yeah, I know what you mean.
But going outside of the regular conventions of war to do something like that means you're operating outside those rules now, so all bets are off.
Okay, so my question to the group is, what would drive you to murder?
I think, someone going after my family or something like that. Like, say if, not like an eye for an eye, I guess, but if my family were, or the people that I loved were in a kind of dangerous situation that was caused directly by someone else's actions, it's like that sort of preempting
It'd be a Liam Neeson situation.
In Taken, yeah.
But you
killed a lot
don't
of people.
have a particular set of skills. You've just got a family in jeopardy and you'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah, I'm motivated.
Yeah. Hi, yeah, so you might have heard of this Liam Neeson chap. He's quite frightening, but you've just threatened my family. And I'm a bit bumbling, but I'm coming after you. Just watch out.
Yeah,
I at least expect it.
I have some friends on social networks.
I'm going to disparage you.
Yeah, I'm going to make a mean podcast.
So you're not murdering their person, you're murdering their credibility.
In a modern day setting, that is murder in the job market. Someone doing something really nasty to those that you care about is something that I guess could. I'd like to think I'm not ever going to kill anyone, but those are things that I realistically think could.
Like a revenge, essentially.
Yeah.
So, would you do it in self-defense before anything had happened to them? If it was just a threat?
Is that self-defense?
No.
That's,
So this is where the question arises: how far do you need to go before murder is the answer?
Yeah. I restraint first, like as in or like reason. So it's like
what if you're trying to restrain them and you kill them by accident?
So like was it EastEnders where someone hit someone in the head with an iron or something?
It was
like
that
that?
little Mo, wasn't it?
Ashtray. Somebody got hit by an ashtray at one point.
Was that Dirty Den?
And it was like a woman that died, I think, and then they buried her.
Oh, that was. I do know the answer to this. I don't ever watch EastEnders.
It's like a pub quiz.
For some, was it Saskia? Did she
Yes,
get?
yeah, that's
it was
who it
Saskia.
was.
Yeah, I've seen maybe 10 episodes of EastEnders in my life.
It was a big thing at the time.
Yeah, it was in all the tabloids, weren't they, taking bets on who was going to be the next person to be killed. And
It was like Who Shot Phil as well.
Who shot Mr. Burns?
Yeah, that was a good one.
It was unexpected as well. It
Stealing
came out
a
of left
sweet.
field.
Very much so.
That's something trivial, isn't it? Like Mr. Burns stole Maggie's sweet, which is what drove her to murder.
Was she really conscious of the murder she committed?
She knew the gun went pow pow.
Here's an interesting question. Like children do kill. It's a known fact. I don't want to like get into specific cases. There's some very prolific ones.
A 5-year-old child finds his dad's gun and accidentally kills his dad.
Do you think a child could premeditate a murder and know what they're
I think they understand
doing?
the concept of life and death.
But when does that... So Maggie Simpson, for instance, she is... How old is Maggie Simpson? 1?
Yeah, she's very young.
Like, she wouldn't be aware she was murdering Mr. Burns.
Or even if she was, maybe she's not aware of the consequences.
Yeah,
it's just a fun thing to do.
Is it the consequences that make murder like the stop you from doing it? Is that a thing? Like, as in, because if we didn't know about the consequences of murder, would we just go around killing people?
Which sort of consequences are you talking about? The consequences on the person who's been killed, or what will befall her for committing
To be honest,
murder?
both. Like, I was considering it from all angles. I think consequences I was initially looking at as like legal, like as in the repercussions that she would have, like from being charged for murder. But actually, like, it can be anything. Like, as in, that would be pretty. I'm fairly sure a baby would be psychologically affected after killing someone.
Well, there's a stage in development of children where they go from only being able to comprehend their own thoughts and feelings and needs to actually understanding that the people around them have those as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think you compare cats to dogs. Cats don't have that, whereas dogs do. Dogs do have this empathy or this understanding. And, you know, a 2-year-old child might not have it, but a 5-year-old child might have that.
Yeah, you've kind of hit the point where you know what is right and wrong at that point, and inflicting something on someone else that you wouldn't like yourself is a bad thing to do to another person. Whereas a baby, you hit yourself on the head with your rattle and it hurts. You're not happy, but you'll happily club the shit out of your best friend who you have no concept that they're being hurt by that.
Yeah. And in fact, it makes you strangely happy when you do it.
Are you saying babies are the most likely murderers?
Maybe.
Are they all sociopathic?
Yeah.
They only focus on themselves.
I think babies are pretty sociopathic.
We've never really experimented by giving lots of babies guns, have we?
America has.
They give guns to anybody.
Yeah.
That's not a silver spoon in your mouth, is it?
This is a silver gun.
Little Glock. There you go. Welcome to Earth.
Can you empathise with somebody who's driven to murder?
It depends who. So if it's kind of a mass murderer or someone who's just like a thrill killer, someone's doing it to see what it feels like to kill someone, I cannot... Well, again, it depends how deep we're going with empathy. I guess I can understand why someone would follow through on those impulses, but I don't think it's right.
Oh, that's my foot.
There's one type of murder we haven't talked about, which is the murder that happens in the film Independence Day when they shoot the aliens that are about to come and take over the world. Like, they almost pretty much kind of wipe out a race of aliens.
It's like, well, do they? Have you seen the trailer for Independence Day 2?
They come back.
Yeah, they're back. That's not a whole race. That's like a battalion.
Is it the same aliens? I still haven't seen the trailer.
It
I
is.
know
I'm
we've talked about it before.
They've got the same sort of ships.
They seem similar, and they've got all these tentacly bits that grab people by the throat.
And I think there's definitely like connotations of telepathy.
So if you're killing aliens, is that murder? Or if there's like the bad aliens from Independence Day, again, does war cover that?
Yeah,
it's like a get out of jail free card.
Maybe it does. Well, definitely in terms of TV ratings, if you kill something that's non-human, then I think it's a lower classification than if it is a human that you're killing.
Wow.
That's why...
What if they bleed red?
Yeah, you can't show blood.
Have there been any experiments where, like, experiments on humans where they've basically convinced people that they've committed a murder when they actually haven't? Like,
is it the Skinner box, that famous experiment where you have someone in another room and then you're sat in a room with a button?
Yeah.
And you are told to press the button and it sounds like you're inflicting pain on the person in the other room, and you get given different rewards if you want to carry on, but because you can't see them, it's very difficult to make that connection.
Yeah.
But you reach a point where you keep pressing the button and suddenly you're not getting a response from the other room, and it does, as far as you can tell, seem like you've just killed someone. Mm-hmm. But because there's not that connection there, most people will just carry on pressing the button. Is that a Skinner box?
I know the experiment that you mean. Yeah. It's kind of dark. It's really interesting, and like how we can absent-mindedly or without that connection just kind of do something.
It's quite a small portion of people that actually stand up to the experimenter and say, no, I'm not prepared to do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's shockingly small, like 30% or something, which, when you think about it, it's really anti-human nature.
Yeah.
I think it is just because it's got such a disconnect. If someone's offering you one thing that you can see immediately as a tangible reward, and the opposite thing, the anti-reward, is something you can't see and have no direct connection to, we'll quite often see the shiny thing and take the shiny thing in lieu of whatever else there is that isn't affecting us immediately.
Yeah. I'm glad that these things mostly exist only as psychological experiments and not as actual real-world examples. Maybe it is part of the reason why people who are responsible for war atrocities, where they're the ones that just give the order, they don't actually do any of the killing, why it's so easy for them to do it, because...
It's tactics, it's their job at the end of the day. They've not got the blood on their hands.
Very disconnected moral choice for them. It's not actually a physical act of... Like, I imagine the worst way to kill somebody would be, like, to strangle them, because it's literally your bare hands, and you'd be able to feel the pulse, the life, the breath go out of this person.
That's what they always say after, in the films or TV shows where they're admitting to the murder, they're like, I could feel the life leave them. And it's like... Oh, that's a bit worrying. That's a bit creepy.
I think the people who are inclined to kill for pleasure are quite often stranglers and things, because they get that kick from feeling the life leave them.
God, how does that switch flip in their brain? I'll never understand that.
No, and I think strangling is one of the forms of killing that is always classed as first-degree murder. Yeah, because you have to really want to kill someone to kill them with your bare hand.
It can be self-defense though, like as in when especially if there's been like a fight leading up to it or something like that, where it's like they've broken into your home, you confront them, it leads to kind of hand-to-hand combat. You put them in a situation where it's like you're filled with rage at this point, you're kind of a bit more animalistic, and you just go for them, and then you don't stop because you're still threatened, and then it's only afterwards that you realise I've killed someone.
Yeah, I can see that. I think I'm more thinking in terms of kind of your regular run-of-the-mill manslaughter, where you're just in like a fight or something like that, and the person will pass out before they're killed. You still have to strangle someone for quite a prolonged period after they've lacked oxygen enough to pass out to actually kill them.
Yeah,
and in a like fight or flight situation where you've opted to fight, if you've knocked your opponent out or if they've passed out, that's usually a good time to stop. You're then safe at that point.
You're just trying to subdue them, you're not actually trying to...
you're not trying to kill them, but to actually then carry on and actually strangle them to death.
That's true, but you don't really get any training for this limit. You don't
get
any experience on where the line lies between subduing and killing.
And that's where it becomes a grey area on whether you've willfully committed a murder or whether you have just killed someone.
I don't know, I just want to get a final answer from you guys on whether or not you think you know what would drive a person to murder. I mean, we've covered self-defense pretty well, I think. And I think that's the one most relatable for us.
Yeah. I can't envisage a situation where I'm just willingly killing people without there being a force acted upon me that's caused a reaction. Like, I would like to think I'm not just a murderer. I'm sure we all would.
It's a universal karma, isn't it?
Yeah.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah, so I wish I hadn't said that now. Again, I think I will definitely be convicted of some kind of crime in the next week. I've incriminated myself in hundreds of crimes just by voicing hypothetical situations.
I think you're fairly safe.
you're all right. Yeah. We'll vouch for you.
I'm not going to leave my house for a week.
We'll be your alibi.
Thanks.
Genuinely.
Only if we are actually a genuine alibi.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to incriminate myself by covering for you, but...
False.
A man will be the Edinburgh 3. Did any of you listen to Serial?
I've listened to the first 2 episodes.
So the first series of it was fantastic. It was about a murder that occurred, and someone was convicted of it, and he's now in prison, and he's been in prison for
like 15
years, 18 years, something like that. But there's been a lot of doubt over whether he actually committed the crime. So they've kind of reopened the case, and in Serial they go through a lot of the evidence, kind of pick it apart piece by piece. But it's fairly unbiased and objective, so that the host, Sarah Koenig, actually interviews the guy in question, the guy who has been convicted of this murder. And she flip-flops between thinking he did do it irrefutably, thinking that he wasn't the one. Mm-hmm. But he's such a nice guy. Kind of when you listen to his interviews, he's just kind of... He's accepted his fate, I think, at this point.
Yeah,
He's not incredulous about it. He's not proclaiming his innocence, but he's also not saying, I definitely did it. He's now just speaking in facts, and he's a fairly genial young man. He seems quite intelligent, and if he did do it, I'm of the opinion that from listening to Serial, I don't think he necessarily was guilty of the crime. The evidence just doesn't quite add up. But if he did do it, he's covering his tracks very well. Like, he doesn't seem like someone who would be capable of killing someone.
Don't they say that most murders happen between family members or spouses?
Yeah, like it's like almost a cliche in all these cop dramas where someone turns up dead.
They go after the husband
or wife straight away. But it never is, because it's TV. But in real life, I think like something like 70% of the time it more than likely is.
In conclusion, I don't think we can say what would drive someone to murder.
No, I think we'd only know if we'd
been a murderer.
Been a murderer or spoken to a murderer. It'd be interesting to hear this, like, for someone maybe who actually did commit the murder and have been in prison for a long time and has kind of come to terms with what they've done, actually having a real conversation with them and being like, what was it that led you to commit murder? And actually set ourselves a task and talk to some murderers.
Report back in a
I mean, Edinburgh's got
Yeah.
tons of ghosts, like old murderers and stuff like that. We can just go commune with them and be
So
like,
we're not talking to the ghosts of their victims, we're talking to the ghosts of the killers themselves.
yeah.
Yeah, we could just get a Ouija board out and just have a bit of communication with them, right?
It must have been really easy to commit murders like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Even like 50 years ago.
No CCTV, no fingerprint ID.
Like, and before that, even no police.
Wait,
Well,
the
there were
police were
some
around
police.
50 years ago.
Yeah, 50 years ago, but like if you go back 100 years, 200 years, there's a rudimentary kind of defence force in every town.
Yeah.
Like the
But
vigilantes.
everybody knew
who come-
everybody at that
There
point.
were so many less people as well. Like,
Yeah.
places weren't as populated as they are now, and it's like I think
People weren't as anonymous as they
Yeah.
are today.
yeah.
You know, because you can get away with it. If you aren't known by anybody.
But let's say I just got a carriage to the next town over. Like 150 years ago, I ride my horse to the next town where no one has ever seen me before.
And they'll be like, who's
I
this
kill
stranger
someone
on
in
a
broad
horse?
daylight, ride off on my horse. That's it, done. No one's ever going to find me.
But somebody's going to follow you or recognise you when they go to the next town.
Well, you go to the town over and start a new
But
life.
then, like, there's nothing in place then to... They
I
can kill me or do nothing else, because then it's just their word.
Yeah, but
Right.
the king was the ultimate judge back then. You know,
Yeah.
you'd be dragged before the court of the king and held accountable
That's
for your
true.
actions.
I understand where you're coming from in that, like, nowadays if someone was killed or went missing, there would be like there would have been CCTV from when they were last seen, and they can just be like, okay, they were last seen here, and then it looks like they're talking to this person and they got in a car with them, or it's like that was their last known point, and that's only 12 hours before they turned up dead.
Channel 4 show, right?
Oh, wasn't it?
Like
yeah.
On the Run or something?
Where they were pretending to be
hunted?
It was like people who had basically committed a crime being hunted by the law enforcement.
Yes, yeah.
And they had to evade capture for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Staying within the UK, I think, was their only limit. And like even people who went hiking in the middle of nowhere got caught because they would put like a newspaper article out about them or something.
Yeah, or they'd be tracked using some kind of technology they had on them, something like that. So yeah, 100 years ago, let's say I killed someone at night, then not in broad daylight.
It's foggy.
And dump the body in the river.
Like I have to walk in foggy London in the old Victorian era, stab someone, leave them in an alley, walk 10 metres away. I can't see the body anymore because of the Dickensian fog that's all over the city.
I think, yeah.
I'm away scot-free.
The circumstance changes, but maybe the human part of it doesn't. Like, the damage you do to your own soul.
So I'm not saying I want to go back in time so I can just kill indiscriminately. But I'm saying if I was predisposed to
doing so
murder
right.
in bygone times, it would have been so much easier.
What was your question, Dan?
So my question is, if you were to be a serial killer, what would your gimmick be? And just for the record, I want to make it clear that serial killing is bad. We do not in any way condone it. We're not making light of it in any way.
No.
Despite how light this may appear.
Give context to where this question came from.
So it's just been Christmas time. I'm sure everyone is familiar with Terry's chocolate orange. They sell them year round, from what I've been told, but I only ever seem to get them as gifts at Christmas. And famously, you have to tap and unwrap them to break the segments. So I was at home with my lovely lady partner wife, and opened a chocolate orange and just started lightly hitting her with it, saying, "I'm gonna tap and unwrap this." So and then it maybe escalated a bit further than it should have into a very dark realm. And I asked her how she would feel if I bludgeoned her to death with it, and then just sat and ate the now tapped chocolate orange.
This is the crime you've incriminated yourself for, yeah.
So, this comes unrelated. This was before I knew we were going to be talking about murder.
We now know what would drive you to murder.
But I would be the tap and unwrap killer.
Yeah.
And I would kill people with chocolate oranges.
Would you leave a segment of orange in their mouth?
Oh, I didn't think of that.
Over their eyes.
That is twisted. No, I was just gonna leave the wrapper over their face, so you didn't know who the victim was until you.
You should put some of it on there.
Exactly. Yeah, you've got.
Would you have to tap them as well for some reason?
That's just sadistic. You're the first person at the scene, and you're just bashing someone's head in. That's not very.
Want to open it up like a segment of oranges?
Are you a sadistic CSI?
How did I turn
killer?
into the bad guy here? You're the murderer.
You're beating someone who's already dead. That's worse, arguably.
You just killed someone for the sick, twisted reason of getting into a chocolate orange.
Yeah, at least that's motive.
Does that make it better?
So and I was also thinking, because you can buy them all year round, but not from everywhere, I'd always stock up at Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
So that way they couldn't track me to like the two shops that sell them during the summer months. I guess I was thinking of it more in like a glitzy Hollywood style serial killer, like
someone that you see in Dexter.
Things like that. Yeah, I like real serial killers are horrific.
But they like to leave a token, don't they? They like to. I think this has probably come from the real Zodiac killer who was around in the 70s in California, and he left some undecipherable code.
Well, they never caught him, did they?
No, and I don't think they ever deciphered the code either.
Yeah, he famously sent 3 or 4 like cryptograms to the police, and I think they definitively solved one.
Oh, really?
But there's still a handful of them that they have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit egotistical, isn't it, to like leave a card or a call?
Well, I think I
do it.
What'd you do?
I'd do it while in fancy dress or something like that, like a different costume every time. So it's like dressed up as like a big penguin one time, or like dressed up as a Yeti or something like that. Just like in different kind of costumes, and it's just like this mystical, weird-looking...
What would you want the press to christen you?
Oh.
Do any serial killers get to choose their own name? I know Zodiac... He pretty much picked his own name, didn't he? He signed off a couple of his letters as Zodiac.
Maybe he took out like newspaper adverts or something to tease the police. Maybe I think he signed them as Zodiac or something like that.
Yeah, so he's one of the few examples where they've picked
Charles
their own
Manson,
name.
he picked his own name.
I think his mom picked his name, didn't he?
Well, he
didn't she?
didn't choose to change it. Yeah.
What's his original name?
Charlie.
Charlie Manson. What's Charles?
So you were dressed as a penguin?
No,
you'd be the penguin,
no,
like
no,
Batman.
No, like as in maybe one day I'd like because you can't just if I kill someone while looking like a penguin, then the next time there's someone walking around in a penguin costume, they'll be like, oh, that guy's that killer, isn't he? So like one time maybe I'll be dressed up as like a horse or maybe a dragon or just like a lot of different fancy dress costumes. I guess the problem is that like it would be quite easy to. Like, they could just go around and ask. It would be quite easy to be caught because they'll just be like, who's renting out that costume? And you can be like, that guy. But, I don't know. I like the idea of just, the murder taking place while in
You're trying to bring some
costume.
Some levity to the situation. You're picking fun costumes, not scary costumes.
Yeah.
So you're having a bit of fun with the people you're... Oh, this is...
I
wish I'd never asked this question.
It's a really dark question.
I'm thinking about this, and it is really dark. Every time I settle on an answer, I picture myself saying it.
so
And
imagine
What's your
imagine it
sadistic
more.
superhero power?
Yeah, imagine it more as you were creating a comic book serial killer, like as in there's maybe,
okay.
and it's
I
like
know what it
Batman
would
has to go and get him.
I know what he would be, right?
Yeah.
He would be the organized killer, right? In the sense that he would kill somebody, and then he would like drain all the blood and put that in one container, and then he'd get the eyes and put them in another container, and then he'd get all the bones and put them in another container. Like he would just take the body apart and put them all in separate little boxes.
Oh God.
You know how people like get the bag of Skittles with all the mixed up colours and separate it out into all the different colours?
Yeah, he just sees people as like mixed up messes of like
And he would
bone and blood
reorganise
and stuff like that.
And he gets
okay.
it. Is that what you would be the reorganizer?
Yes,
Which is
The
arch
sorter.
nemesis be the person who'd come back and put them all back in place and like make weird sculptures
Someone
out
who's
of them.
a
Like
mess.
Well, I
Frankenstein or
could
something that's
sell it as
Frankenstein.
parts to people who are trying to reanimate human bodies. Is the thing.
Yeah.
I went to a museum once, a museum exhibition of a guy who takes dead bodies and uses some kind of plastic. Like,
yeah, he pumps wax through their veins. Is this I
the
can't
German
remember
guy.
his name.
Is the guy who did the live autopsy
Yeah,
on
and he's
TV.
sliced a brain in a bread slicer, and he's done it to an elephant as well, where he
Yeah.
chops it up and stuff. And I actually went to his London show
Amazing.
where all these bodies are on displays. I mean, it's fun. It's fun. Sorry, what?
No, sorry. I went to there was an exhibition by him at the Natural History Museum where he'd done that to loads of animals.
Yeah.
I went there with 2 vegans. It was the worst place to be.
But he hasn't killed these animals.
No,
has
No,
he?
They've
but I
died
think
of
the
natural
principle
causes.
of it is like
So you can't be a vegan and be upset that animals have internal organs.
yeah, but when you're looking
Like
at a
he's
cat
not
without
kind
any
of
skin
killed
on it.
one, eaten some of it, and gone, I've got a bit left, I'm going to do an exhibition with it. He's showing the anatomy. As a vegan, you can't be upset
No,
that
because
animals have an anatomy.
I think vegans' main point would probably be that the animals had a will. Not a written will, but willpower, and their willpower probably wouldn't extend to using their body for these messed up purposes afterwards. I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose. I think it's the cynic in me.
But also, Damien Hirst sliced a shark into...
Shark
a cow.
murder.
A cow into... Yeah, no, he's got a shark in formaldehyde. I've seen
It
that.
has. It's in 2. It is, isn't it?
No,
No,
the
the cow's in 2, and you
cow's-
can walk between
Yeah.
the cow and see it all floating around.
You can, yeah. It's fairly graphic.
Yeah.
I would expect
well
it.
preserved.
A cow cut in half would be quite graphic.
Yeah. But actually quite clean and clinical
Yeah.
in regard to how it probably happened.
Yeah. Big.
Well, yeah, I
bounce.
mean, to do something like that, you can't just tear it apart with your hands, can you?
But do you think
Gotta-
about how many tries he probably had to take? He probably went through a couple of cows to get that done.
Charles Bronson could have killed it with a single punch. I think he just knocks cows out there, doesn't he?
What?
Charles Bronson,
Charles Bronson,
the world's
the world's
UK's
most
famous
notorious prisoner.
prisoner. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did he punch a cow to death?
Not to death, but apparently he can knock a cow out with one punch. He's been in prison for pretty much all his life. I don't know how he found that out.
That's not a fair fight either, because cows have got hooves. Their shoulders don't move in that way. They
Yeah.
couldn't punch back.
I don't know if that's just like a prison legend. Like the story where he butters himself up, and his football team he supported lost a game, and he was in prison, so he went into the kitchen. I think he took a guard hostage or something. He took all his clothes off, covered himself in butter, and then just challenged anyone who wanted to fight him to a fight. And this is why he's still in prison. Like he attempted an armed robbery or something. Yeah. Probably went to prison for a handful of years.
Right.
Could have been out living his life as all, but instead he just keeps doing insane shit in prison.
Have you ever seen Bronson, the film?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Like Tom Hardy, it was one of the first. It wasn't one of the first Tom Hardy films that I'd seen, but I think maybe in his kind of standalone role sort of thing. But like there was, like, I think it's in the film it kind of explores all the artwork that Charles Bronson has done since being in. And by artwork, it's just that he never did art in school or anything like that. But he's really creative, and he's definitely got like he has got a big twiddly moustache, and it's like
he's the original hipster.
Well, that's like a big
he
expression
that
of
look
himself.
Outside
like
of the Victorian age, not a murderer. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Just an insaniac.
And he's like if he was born in a different time, he would be like a gladiator. Like he's a big guy and just naturally quite strong.
I reckon there's a lot of different ways you can express yourself as a serial killer and be known to the press. You can't really decide your own name, but I guess what you do would define it. I'd want to be the sorting killer.
The sorting killer,
I guess.
I just kind of want to bring a bit of fun, a bit of pizzazz to the pretty grim thing of murder. You know, if it's going to happen, let's be quirky about it.
I want to get a sponsorship deal from Terry's. If I could monetize it in some way.
They could give you a stamp to stamp on the victim.
Yeah, or just one of the little stickers that they use to keep the wrap. Because it's a feat of engineering, isn't it? It's a single piece of foil with a sticker on it. That's actually not that much of a feat of engineering when you describe it like that. But they're always wrapped so perfectly.
How do you think we can sum up the whole conversation about murder?
It's not good.
Yeah, murder is not a nice thing.
It's really not good, is it?
I do worry that this has been like we've touched on some pretty horrible things.
Brushed a bit too close to some very, very dangerous topics.
I like murder is.
Don't do it.
No.
I think we've decided some forms of killing, whilst not good, are still justifiable for better or for worse.
Not necessarily. That doesn't necessarily make them like right.
But I think murder in its purest form it's an expression of evil, isn't it? It's.
I think we've established that none of us would really choose to become murderers. We would really think of ourselves as capable of that kind of thing. You know, of premeditated, intentional murder. It's just not right.
And I think it's good. It shows we're human still. Like, I don't think anyone could kind of sit here and honestly say they think they could murder someone and there not be something that needs to be questioned further.
Yeah.
Well.
Either that or you know yourself really well, for which you should be applauded. But don't ever kill anyone.
I'm going to make a promise right now that I'll never kill anyone.
That's exactly what a killer would say.
Oh, damn it.
I'm cutting you out of my will.
Don't.
Not going to get my Empire Records DVD. I haven't got it on DVD.
Cherries, chocolate, oranges.
It's cutting close to home, Ryder. Don't have any yet.
Oh. Build up a stock. I've got loads of kettle chips at home.